doing some cool things and love to share. But Stacey, it is such a joy and honor to have you on the podcast today. And like we were just talking about, I'm super excited just because of your career in sales and marketing and coaching. And I know you've got a lot of knowledge to share with our listeners.
Well, Chris, I'm the one honored. I was going to say it makes me feel very happy because I feel honored and blessed to tell you the truth when you reached out to me and said you wanted to have a conversation with me. And I love the concept of your podcast. So I'm thrilled to be in the studio. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the kind words as we're trying to do some really cool things. And part of that is having people like yourself on to share your knowledge and experiences and motivation. And so, Stacey, I want you to kind of give me an overview because from what I've learned about you, it's very, and I may be wrong, but high level sales, marketing, consulting, then you kind of get a little bit burned out, like a lot of us, and you go and take some time to find your balance. And while you're doing this, you've written a couple of books already about the coaching, selling, and then also about finding your balance. And now you've got a book out that's kind of a hybrid of being able to do both in a state to where you're not losing your mind. Is that pretty accurate?
And somewhat, yeah, there's 5 books. The sixth one is really a mini book, but it is a condensed down version of all the others in
Yeah.
terms of pulling out what's the most important. Over as I got older and figuring out what was necessary, what's not necessary in my world,
Yeah.
I'm finding that the message resonates with women and men.
Yeah.
Maybe for different reasons, but it's it's still resonating in both cases.
Yeah.
And yes, I had a successful corporate career. Then I had a very successful first book as a consultant, and I was not prepared for all that success. You know, people say they're scared of success. I didn't know enough to be scared of success. I just knew I didn't want to fail, right? So I I was younger. I thought I had energy to burn, and I wound up burning it out completely. And I wound up in bed for 2 years and 3 months.
Ooh.
And then it took me more than 10 years to rebuild to a point where I felt that I had enough understanding to not do it to myself again, and enough, we'll say, wisdom that I've acquired to be able to have something new to say to people. And and so I've been going ever since then. And it's all about being in alignment. Being in alignment first and foremost with our core values, making sure that we stick to our values, even if somebody else's seem like a good idea.
Yeah.
Stay with your own.
Yeah.
And then a mission and a purpose that drives us forward is not trying to correct something from the past. And then taking that mission and purpose out into the world. And not that you have to have a business with it, but I would say every business owner has to really have a mission and purpose if they're going to see it all the way through to success. So there you go. In a nutshell, that was
Yeah.
how I got here.
Yeah. No, thank you because yeah, there's a lot of topics that you speak and write on and work to implement when you're working with others. When I was doing my research, I was like, "Yep, that's great. Yep, that's great. Yep, I need that. Like this is good." Uh, and I was even thinking to my wife too. She was like, We both do really good of trying to find that balance of work as being driven individuals. It sounds like you were too. If you just kind of get caught up in trying to accomplish things. And before you know it, you kind of do find yourself a little bit scattered and a little maybe overwhelmed. And it's not on purpose. It's
Huh?
kind of by accident. And you're just like, whoa, how did I get here? So I think it's really great, though, that you took a moment to reset and now you've been able to coach and share that story. And hopefully that impacts a lot of people. So maybe they don't make that same path you did.
Yes. Well, yes, I have been able to. And yes, it does resonate. I like to work with folks who are at that place where they've had some success,
Mhm.
but they're burnt out. Like, and I call it being the burnt out searchlight versus the powerfully brilliant lighthouse. And because those of us who are passionate about life, it doesn't take much for us to not so much get overwhelmed, but get over busy
Yeah,
because we're fascinated by so much, right?
yeah,
So we can go down this pathway and that pathway, and then all of a sudden we're so far apart. And I have to say that having a good mentor
yeah,
has made a difference for me. And because I've had really good mentors in my life, I feel like I've learned from the best on how to mentor others. So, not just how do you have sales success in your business, but how do you have life success while running a business? And I'm my favorite coach, and I am going to recommend that you interview him. His name is
yeah.
Norbert Orlowitz. He is a true mentor in every stage of the word. When we first started, he's like, I don't think you're going to like me very much because I'm going to tell you to get rid of a whole lot of stuff. So I think you found a lot of the old stuff that I'm not doing anymore, but it's out there in the world because
Yeah.
he's like, yeah, y- you're just going to keep burning yourself out over and over
Mhm.
again if you keep doing all of that. So no matter how many interests you may have, do your best to keep it to three,
Yeah.
is what I'm going to say.
Well, that's I haven't heard anyone describe it quite like that, but you're exactly right. And especially in the sales space, you get introduced to a lot of different people and you learn a lot of different curious things. And all of a sudden, you're golfing and workout and family and dogs and life and this and that. And you go from being really passionate and excited about these things to all of a sudden kind of being numb because you're just checking the day off and the boxes because you have so much stuff you've consumed and put in your schedule in life that you really can't enjoy anything. And again, I think it happens by accident because you are so curious and you love life, and
Yeah.
you want to implement all these things, but it just gets the roller coaster starts going too fast and you don't know how to stop it or slow it down.
Yes. And I say just determine what stage of life you're in. Like in the stage that you're at, what are the most important things to learn about, pursue
Yeah.
based around your priorities of life? So, if I may, I know we're not talking about sales right now, and yet we are,
Yeah.
because if you're too tired to show up with enthusiasm for your clients,
Yeah.
then it's having an effect on your sales. So,
Mhm.
what I always say is make that life not a list, actually a spreadsheet of what are the categories of your life. Are, if self care is important to you, that's got to be a category. If your faith is important to you, it has to be a category. If your spouse is important, category. Children, category. Business, category, right? They're all categories. Dogs, you probably just heard my Lucy bark because she was excited because my
Yeah.
husband just came in, right? So my dogs are a category. Then, based upon what absolutely has to get attention, then we reorganize the categories, right? So maybe we just get them all out.
Yeah.
But then, what's the number one category that has to take place and
Yeah.
be addressed so that all the rest can happen
Yeah.
if and when they're ready. Then the second, then the third. And what I always say is, even though you might have 7 or 8 categories, that's usually most people don't have 9. You're not going to be able to give them all attention on the same day, and maybe not in the same week, and maybe not even in the same month
Yeah.
or quarter. So you look at how long do I have to give this particular priority attention? And you get a calendar out. So that's the other thing. Do not, please don't use this to organize because everything looks equal. You get a calendar out,
Yeah.
you put the stuff on the calendar, and then you see how much time you have left over. So that's some wisdom that I discovered, and this is how I live my life every day. And if something can't be addressed right now, it has to be oh, well, there'll come a time.
Yeah. I like that you say that because my calendar, thankfully, I'm doing something right, it sounds like. I've got all my work stuff, but then it's like, buy dog food, do this, and any little thing that I might forget that needs to be done in a
Yep.
certain day of the month or something, I'm like, schedule a haircut. Everything goes on the calendar.
Everything, right,
Yeah.
including sleep, because
Yeah.
it's not gonna happen, which
Yeah.
is what happened to me. I gave up
Yeah.
sleep there for a period of time. I don't recommend it.
Yeah. Well, I think this transitions perfectly, and I wanna get into your book, Selling from Your Comfort Zone, because I love as I was learning about it and reading on some of the description of where we are told, "Hey, go until you can't go anymore," and it's just hustle, 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 which leads to the very burnout that a lot of people experience. But
Yes.
your book, I haven't seen anyone take this approach and talk about selling from your comfort zone because that most people hear, it's get uncomfortable, get uncomfortable, get uncomfortable. So, talk a little bit about your spin and how you differentiate your approach.
Okay, so let me explain where this all came from. Because first off, our comfort zone is not our lazy zone. I'm not talking about sitting in bed, eating, for women, watching TV all day and eating bonbons. And for guys, just, I don't know what you would be doing, like it's not escapism. In our zone of comfort is where our confidence is. And this is how this got started. I kept hearing people having issues with confidence and consistency,
Mm,
those two things. And I started looking at what contributes to confidence and what contributes to consistency. It's the same thing, knowing what to do. And interestingly enough, overwhelm goes away as well when we know what to do. So you start looking at where do we know what to do? Well, from our past, the things that we enjoy doing, the
okay.
things that we have experience in, all of that is in a zone. And then I'm back to my core values. Our values also give us confidence. Our values give us consistency. So there's this zone of power, right? Like this is where I draw my power from. So that was the first where I started going, huh, interesting. Why? Why do people pull us out of our comfort zone? Why do they say you have to go out on the skinny branches and risk having them break and
Mhm,
fall, right? Well, who says that? A lot of coaches, a lot of mentors, a lot of sales trainers. Why? Because if you don't know how to do what they do, you need to take their courses.
yeah.
And I started looking at that, like really going to their events and listening, like these ones that are all about getting out of your comfort zone. And and it's all hustle and it's all um excitement, right? And excitement has anxiousness in it. It's not enthusiasm, it's nervous energy. And they'll say from the stage, "You're unique. You should embrace your uniqueness." And then right after they say, "Now you have to get out of your comfort zone." Well, hold on.
Two
My
different things.
uniqueness is my zone of power. Why are you telling me to get out of it where I don't know what I'm doing? This is making sense, right? Like it's all logic if we stop and look at it. And then I did research into psychology, the psychology of getting out of one's comfort zone. Tons of studies done.
Okay.
But these out of your comfort zone masters won't tell you that.
Mm,
But you know where the whole concept of fight, fright, and flight comes from? Getting out of your comfort zone.
mm,
It's exactly the fear, the fear. And they say, ignore the fear and do it anyway. Well, there's this many people. There's a small fraction of people who will go, okay, I'm an adventurer. I'll go do that. But that's actually their comfort zone. They're not getting out of their comfort zone. They're still in their comfort zone if they're an adventurer. So I hope this makes sense. But when I did that, I'm like, somebody has to write the book to get people back. And where we hear it the most is actually in the sales world. Sales trainers, more than anyone, will say if you're not making sales, you have to get out of your comfort zone. Instead of saying, let's see how do we expand. Let's expand on your strengths. And that's all this means. Selling from your comfort zone, sell by expanding your strengths.
Wow, I've never thought about that, Stacey, but I'm sitting here thinking of like, because I've been in sales for a little over a decade now, and I'm thinking the absolute best salespeople that I've been around, they're in their zone when they are like the top guys or gals that I've been around, they are loving it and they're like there's just this smoothness to it. But I've never thought about that. Like that is their zone. They're not really that uncomfortable. Like that's their sweet spot. And everyone else is having to get out or they think they've got to get out of it to try and match that when you may be just a different person and may need a different approach. And I've never thought about that until you just broke it down that way.
And you just brought up the key. That's the last piece that puts this glue together here is everyone's a different kind of personality type, right? Don't we hear about that in selling? You have to know the personality type of the person you're talking to. Well, how come they all have different personalities, but we as salespeople, we have one?
Mhm.
I don't understand. I don't understand that mentality. No, I have my personality. They have their personality. Chris, you have yours. Others have theirs. Let's match my selling style to my personality. And let's identify who would be in an ideal audience for me to connect with. And rather than organizing sales territories geographically, why don't we maybe talk about personalities?
Yeah.
So all of this has gone into it, and I pay homage to my father, who is long gone, but he was in sales all his life, and he went into selling because people said he was good with people, and he was. He was great with people. He wasn't allowed to be great with people on the job. So I watched that. I watched how miserable he was and how he would do his best to get out of his comfort zone. And every once in a while, he'd have a win. But he was most happy when he was an independent contractor and was left alone to be able to sell his way. So that's that's
Well,
the original goat for me.
all of this it makes so much sense when you're breaking it down. It's kind of funny. I hear people talk about you're bringing up like the regions and stuff, and you're like, why does that person have that or that? Like they know that person better than that person, but it seems like companies confuse it and convolute it really for no reason. Which kind of leads me to my next question: is do you, as you try to put this knowledge out there and work with companies or individuals? Is it hard sometimes? As in, do you get pushback a lot from maybe people who are like, "No, that's not the way," or they just not open or receptive to what you're trying to say? Because I think if you I'm just thinking like no brainer to me, but I'm actually listening to you. Is it hard sometimes for people to get to that point?
Um, the answer is this: yes and
Mhm.
no. Chris, you heard it, you resonated with it right away. And
Yeah.
that's exactly, it's like there are two groups of people.
Mhm.
There are the ones who have invested so heavily into attempting to get out of their comfort zone. It's almost like rooting for two different football teams, right?
Yeah.
Like you're either team get out of your zone, and the ones who are successful there, like I said, their personality is they're in competition with themselves. They'll do whatever they can. But they're not able to see they're actually in their zone,
Yeah.
expand it, right? But then there's a whole lot of other people who will point to those people and say, no, in order to be successful like them, I have to get out of my comfort zone. So, okay. I'm not going to argue with you. But there's a whole lot of other people who, when I start talking about the lighthouse concept, and the lighthouse has its own,
Mhm.
and it's got its internal power, and it's not running up and down the beach trying to get the attention of everyone. It's shining its light. The people who are meant to see that light can come to it. They're not a lighthouse is not in competition with the lighthouse down the beach. They're doing the same thing, but in different places. All of a sudden, now the concept starts really being embraced, and that it is our zone of power. The more we expand our power and our light to be able to serve, it feels more satisfying.
Yeah.
You practice it, and some people are going to go, so I have to learn how to do it your way. The book is not telling you a way to do it.
Find your
My
zone.
book gives you the questions to identify your way.
Yeah.
How do you want to show up like a lighthouse? Every lighthouse is different colorings, literally painted differently, different shapes. They're all sort of the same shape, but some are squatter, some are taller. And every lighthouse has a different pulse to its light beam. Every one. So, how do you determine your markings, your size, and your light beam?
Yeah.
That's what this book will help you. And then, based on that, you will know where to locate yourself, whether it's social media or in person. You'll know what your messaging is because you're going to craft it and you're going to feel more satisfied, more successful, and you'll be closing more sales.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. And I'm sitting here like correlating with the lighthouse to like sports even, where it's
Yes.
like a quarterback being in their zone's different than a receiver being in their zone. The
Yes.
quarterback can throw perfect passes when they're in the zone. The receiver catches everything coming their way when they're in their zone, or a defensive end can't be blocked when they're in their zone. So there's different positions, different people, different zones, and your book helps you find your zone for how you are in your phase of life or whatever's going on and how you are, personality, all kinds of different things that factor into that.
Yeah.
Uh Thanks,
I love
Stacey. We
that.
just packed a lot into a short podcast here, which again, I think this is great because I think you've said so much of value in a short amount
Yeah.
of
Thank
time
you.
that even myself, like I said, I've studied up before we jumped on here, but there are things that you just broke down where I'm like, I've never thought of that before. Like, makes a lot of sense. And I think a lot of people who watch or listen to this, I hope feel the same way and are like, "Wow, light bulb."
Well, Chris, you're a great interviewer, and I just took the ball and ran with it if we're going to use the sports analogy. But I'm going to be using your sports analogy. I've never used that metaphor, but that's exactly what it is. Everybody can't be the quarterback
Yeah,
and win. You may want to be,
yeah,
but you may not be, you know,
yeah,
suited for it.
yeah,
Well, let's put it that way.
yeah. Well, Stacy, I know we've got some things to run to, so we'll jump off here. But I want to kind of leave it like that too, because there's so much you gave, and I think this is going to generate a lot of interest to pick up your book. Like, hey, you just gave us so much that I need to dig more into, and so really appreciate you taking the
Oh,
time to do
thank
this
you.
today. We've got your book on the Books for Guys website, and we're going to get it out there even more. And so, thank you so much, Stacy. This was fantastic.
Chris, I'm very, very, again, honored and appreciate you. And I look forward to letting people know about the show. It is fabulous. I love the title and I love the focus. Thank you.
Thank you, Stacy.